Welcome, everyone, to the Dad Cartel podcast. I'm excited to bring you conversations with great dads from across the country. Please follow the Dad Cartel on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok if you found value in this episode. And if you really did find value in this episode, please share it with a fellow dad who could benefit from it. We're trying to create a great dad culture, and that's helpful for us. So, and also, if you're interested in participating as a guest, please email me at prouddad@dadcartel.com. Today, I'm joined by John. Hey, John.
Man, good morning.
Hey, good morning, man. Thank you for joining us. I figured as a dad, you're
Cheers.
up in the morning. You got your coffee. I got
Oh
mine.
man, it's never ending. It's like clockwork. You wake up, it's like your your internal clock is just get up, even
Yep,
when you don't
yep.
want to.
Exactly right. Like I'm gonna sleep in today, and then it's like 7 a.m. at the latest.
Yeah, sleeping in to me is like about 7:30 the latest. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
can't do
Nice,
it.
nice. What's your go-to coffee?
I'm your regular plain Jane, just some creamer, a little bit of sugar, and I'm good
Yeah,
to go, man.
yeah,
Once in a while, I'll get fancy with the creamers, a little
yeah,
mocha, whatever you call it,
yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm a, I'm a black coffee guy, but lately my mom was just in town last weekend, and
Hmm.
she's obsessed with like trying the different creamers. So I caught myself drinking like trying all the creamers, the coconut one, and there's like a Rice Krispie one, and I'm like, man, how far has this come along that like
I'm
I've been
telling you,
been
man.
so out of the loop.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Nice. So tell me about your dad origin story, John. When did you become a dad? What was it like for you? Was it everything you expected it to be, or was it a lot more?
Well, let me start off by saying, and I'm sure you've heard this 1,000 times, there's no manual and you're never ready to be a dad. I mean, yeah,
Mhm.
you can mentally try to prepare yourself for what's
Yeah.
to come, but it was just me and my fiance met, and it actually happened so fast, man. Within a couple months that within we got together, and then within 3 or 4 months, boom, hey, I get the text, I'm pregnant, and I'm like, holy hell, And and I didn't have my first kid till I was about 27 years old.
Okay.
20,
Nice.
yeah, 27, and and I was excited but scared at the same time. I'm sure
Yeah.
as most dads are, and
Mhm.
it was a lot of nervous energy, a lot of excitement, a lot of you don't know what the hell's gonna happen, and
Mhm.
so she told me she broke the news, and we just went from there. And it was a big mess at first. Uh,
Mhm.
we both were, at the time I was staying with my mom. I was in a rough
Mhm.
patch,
Mhm.
and we both actually, we stayed in the living room, sleeping on the air mattress almost
Mhm.
throughout her entire pregnancy. That's how it started off. So it's not all fairy tales and rainbows and
Yeah.
like some people, and ain't
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. But
Yeah.
and about now 8 years later, we're doing good. We got a home and we're thriving. And
Awesome.
not saying we're perfect. We're far
Yeah.
from it, and we'll
Yeah.
never be perfect because, like I
Yeah.
mentioned, still trying to figure it out. Every
Yeah.
day's every day's a challenge, and just got to roll with it and try to
Yeah.
work together as a team, and just try to get through it as best you can.
Yeah.
And you know, yeah,
That's amazing, man. I like how you said that. It's not all fairy tale stories, right? Or this
no, not at
beautiful
all.
setup where you plan everything and you have a house and you have it all set up. And man, it's so important to say that because everyone thinks of it that way. And I say it a lot, right? Like I say it myself. I did wait and I planned it out, and it was
Mhm.
exactly kind of this. It was at least the baseline of the scenario I wanted. But I've seen so many other awesome dads that like they weren't planning it, right, and it happened, and
Right.
then they stepped up, right, and that's the other side of it
Mhm.
that's really important. Of we may never plan it 100%, right,
No,
but it's when it happens is stepping up and taking care of your kids and saying, you know what,
exactly.
now I'm gonna step up. Now I'm gonna find new opportunities. Now I'm gonna make sure that we have a house and we have shelter and we have
Mhm.
stability, and just improving on that, right? It doesn't have to be at 100% from the get-go, but
Yeah, not at
chipping
all.
yeah, chipping away at it is what matters.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's like I said, not every dad has to have it figured out right away because you don't. Like
You never will, right? That's
you never will. And,
that's the secret.
and that's something I'm actually implying to my oldest son, which is 7. I do talk to him. I said, hey son,
Mm,
you're never gonna have it figured out.
mhm.
You never will. You're never gonna be perfect. I mean, in our eyes, you may be perfect, but in
Yeah.
other people's eyes, you may not be perfect. So
Mhm.
don't ever think you're better than anybody else. I could go on and on, but so
Yeah, no, yeah.
it's like I said, it's taking a lot of past stuff that's happened and just trying to break that cycle. That's all it
Yeah.
is.
So tell me about those early days when your kids were born. Was it your son that was born first? And
Uh,
how was it like, getting into like going from I've never done this before to like changing diapers and getting into the mix.
well, another thing, nobody ever tells you how dirty this crap is going to be. It's a
Yeah.
dirty, messy job, man. I've been crapped on, I've been peed on, I've dealt with
Mm-hmm.
explosions,
Mm-hmm.
throw up. I mean, it really is just you just learn as you go. You learn as you go.
Mm-hmm.
There's not amount. There's not many books you could read, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
it's kind of
There's
like
not
when you
much.
start a job. They give you all this training. Yeah, they give you all this training, and once you start the job, you're like, this is nothing like training, And as when you become a dad, is you just okay. This is how I mean, I don't know how many times I put on diapers backwards, and to this day, I still do it. With underwear, and so when my son was first born, he was a preemie.
Mm,
And he was 3 pounds, 16 ounces, and now
wow.
he's a full-grown 7-year-old healthy boy.
That's
And
awesome.
he spent about 3 weeks in the NICU. It was a little stressful.
Mm-hmm.
We're there every day. Of course, he was okay,
Mm-hmm.
but just seeing him there with all the tubes and all everything running through him, it kind of breaks your heart, especially it's your
Yeah.
first kid, and um, so you just got to deal with it and
Yeah.
trust in the doctors and the nurses to take care of him and all that. And
Right.
everything worked out. He eventually came out, and brought him home, and that was probably the scariest day of our life, taking him home.
Oh man, that's funny. That's so funny to say, but I can relate to what you're saying, even despite what you went through, right? Just having your son in the NICU and all that, man. I can't imagine
Uh-huh.
that. It's stressful as it is being in the delivery room and dealing with
Yeah.
all of that. But man, that you're right. That drive home is so terrifying. Where we got released at like midnight and we asked to go home as soon as possible because like you can't get rest in the hospital. They come in and out and it's like
Yeah.
every hour they're like doing some test and you're just like, Jesus, I'm exhausted, let me like
Yeah.
leave me alone. And
Uh,
so they're like, just release us as soon as possible. So we cleared all the tests and we're supposed to leave by 9 and it's like 12
mhm.
something and I'm just like, let's just go. And that was the scariest drive because I'm like sleep deprived and like there's no cars on the road, but I'm like, I'm just waiting for that weird drunk driver, that one drunk driver to come and like swerve towards us. And it's like
Yeah.
all the bad scenarios are going through your head.
It's kind of crazy, that right? Like when you become a dad, like all your spidey instincts just start poop, 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 start
Mhm,
coming off out everywhere. But I will
mhm.
say, man, me personally, I loved and I enjoyed the couch inside the pull out couch, turn it to a bed. A lot of guys didn't like it. I slept like a baby on it, honestly. I had my
Nice,
iPad there, I'd sleep, watch movies, and while my
nice.
fiance's there looking at me, wanting to slap me in the head because I'm comfortable and she's there hooked up.
Oh man.
And
You should have at least pretended you were uncomfortable because
right,
man,
started
I can't.
groaning like, oh my back. And I
Yeah.
honestly, I've probably got some of the best sleep of my life there in that hospital.
Man, tell me what hospital you went to because
uh,
I
it
gotta go check that out.
it yeah, it's a hospital called Bay Area. Yeah, here, yeah, down here in Corpus Christi, Texas, where I'm from.
Gotcha.
And our son, he was actually born a C-section. It was
Oh,
actually
okay.
an emergency C-section.
Oh, wow.
What's crazy is how that happened was we went on a Friday,
Mm,
and he was born September 18th of
mm,
2015, and he
mm,
wasn't supposed to be born till like mid to late October. So
mm.
that's how the whole NICU thing happened. But
Yeah.
anyways, we go for the her follow-up. Of course, I'm there because I'm first time dad. I'm excited. I want to see the sonograms and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And the last thing we do is see her doctor, and they check her. They check the blood pressure and all that stuff. And I remember they came in and they kind of had this serious look on her face, and I'm like, what the hell's
Mhm.
going on? And he's all like, your blood pressure is really high. And I'm like, like what? She's like, well, I feel fine. And she did. She looked good. And,
Mhm.
it was so high they even asked us, did y'all argue this morning or something? And we both looked at each other like, what? No,
Yeah.
like, no.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's a regular day. We're just excited to come see the baby and see the progress.
Mhm.
Well, we're gonna have to keep her in the hospital until further notice. And that's when everything changed. Like you said, the doctor has a plan for you. That
Mhm.
whole plan just went out the window. It ended up being we're gonna have to do emergency C-section within like an hour.
Oh,
In the
man.
emergency room, I'm in scrubs. She's there. They're cutting her open. It looks crazy
Wow.
because you see her moving, and I'm like, "Are you okay?" Like Jesus.
Yeah.
And you can actually, you could smell like where they're cutting with the skin. That's all the
Yeah.
gory stuff. But
Yeah.
once you see, once you saw the baby, everything, all that scaredness just kind of went away. Once you heard him crying. I
Yeah.
just remember when they took him out, man, a stream of pee just went all over the
Yeah.
place.
Oh,
So,
man.
yeah, so yeah, it was a crazy day to say the least. Crazy
Oh, man,
day.
it sounds like it, man. I can't imagine what that would even be like. Our my wife's pregnancy went pretty smooth. It went very smoothly, I'd say.
Oh,
But
that's
she
good.
was, yeah, she was induced early, a couple
Mm-hmm.
weeks early. But man, that if anyone's out there and considering, like, if your wife is going to be induced, just know what you're up against, because
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had this experience with it with your next one of your next kids, but
Mm-hmm.
man, I guess with C-sections you schedule them out right afterwards. But
Yeah.
with my wife, it took her, it was a 57-hour labor. So
Jeez.
it was insane. And so she was like on the doorstep of about to need a C-section. And
Mm-hmm.
luckily everything was stable enough where her
Mm-hmm.
doctor felt like we can wait it out, and we did. And
Mm-hmm.
kind of at that 11th hour, he
Mm-hmm.
kind of said, like, it's now or never. And she
Yeah.
pushed and we figured it out. But or she
Yeah.
figured it out, I should say. I did too much. I'm not going to give myself credit.
Yeah.
I was I mean, not do that. But yeah,
Yeah.
it worked out. And she was
Mm-hmm.
healthy, and we were able to go home a couple days later. But man, it's so all over the place, right? Like, I have
Yeah.
family member that went through like what you've went through, and it's
Mm-hmm.
terrifying.
And like you said, you got all these doctors coming in and out, or the nurses in and out through all hours of the night. You're just all this stuff going on all at once, and
Mhm.
like you being a new father, it's just like kind of overwhelming, and it's just like, whoa, what the hell?
Yeah.
So I get it,
So
man. Yeah.
So tell me, like, it's you mentioned your beginning wasn't like a fairy tale story, right? It wasn't this big plan
Mm-hmm.
thing, or kind of like what the posturing you see on social media and like Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
right, where people do all these different things, right? But so tell me, when it comes to dads, everyone talks about the financial contributions and that thing, right? And that's all well documented. People, um, as men, we have that expectation of ourselves to financially contribute and
Mm-hmm.
provide. But what are some of the things that a dad can contribute that aren't financial?
Uh, be a dad.
Yeah.
Be a dad. Number one, be a dad. Whether you had a good upbringing with your dad, or you didn't have a good upbringing with your dad, like I didn't. Be a
Hmm.
dad. Be there for moral support for your wife, your fiance, your girlfriend, whatever. Support her, but support your kid at the same time, man. me personally, I may seem like I'm over exaggerating a lot, but when my kid does something, the smallest thing, the smallest thing, they could look, Dad, look what I did. I colored this, you
Mhm.
know. It's no Picasso, but you're like, wow,
Yeah,
you uplift them,
yeah.
and that's something money can't buy, man. You give them that confidence, that boost. You try to set that foundation for them now at a young age, so that way when
Mhm.
as they grow older, they have that confidence, and they have those stepping stones where they can't, they're they just have confidence and
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great point. And just encouraging your kids, right, and empowering them when you can. It's I can't tell you how you maybe you grew up how I did, but I'm Mexican, and the Mexican culture was very much, dad works his ass off, comes home, puts his shoes down, eats, and chills out,
yep,
drinks a beer, probably hangs out, and then back at it right in the morning, right? It's a cycle
yeah,
thing, and it's out of necessity usually, and I that's something that I've understood over the years as I got older, but
mhm,
there was very little of that, like, patting, telling your kid, hey, or asking your kid, hey, how was school, and how did you do on your test, and
mhm,
how's that friction with your best friend that you were
yeah,
telling me about. There was none of that, right? There was very little that. You're
mhm.
lucky if your mom even knew that kind of stuff, but
Oh, of course,
it's
yeah,
knowing those little intangible things of like what matters to your kid, what is your kid interested in, right? Because
mhm,
parents may, it's a typical kind of like, for me it was like first generation, immigrant family thing that, I was told like, oh, you should be a doctor, you should be a lawyer, you should be this. Like for me it was be a lawyer because I said it
mhm.
once and it stuck, and they're like, oh, you're going to be a lawyer, and I'm like, I don't know how to do that. And that's not what I ended up becoming, right? But it's
Yeah,
it's that it's that kind of thing of like figure out what your kids actually give a shit about, right? Like, are they
exactly.
interested in sports? Are they interested in, like, engineering or whatever it is, and try
Mhm.
to nurture it, right? That's what I have in mind, at least.
Exactly, man. Yeah, and that's the right way to go. Instead of forcing your kids into something they don't want to do, they're gonna hate it so much, and that's sometimes that's some advice I give other dads, like because I had some friends like, oh, he's gonna play sports, or she's gonna play sports, or oh, he can't have soda. This, I mean, which I understand, you do gotta limit the soda intake, but I'm like, dude, you gotta let him be a goddamn kid,
Yeah.
like you can't seclude them so much. You gotta expose them to. I'm not saying that every bad thing, show them bad stuff, but
Mhm.
me personally, how I do it is I'm honest with my kid. I tell them, it is an ugly world out there,
Yeah.
but it's up to, as dads, like I said, you got to set that foundation, and you got to instill in them that no matter how ugly the world is, you just got to keep pushing on, and not be scared. And but on that same note, I did say it's okay to be scared,
Mhm.
but use that fear, use it to propel you, to help you
Yeah.
grow, which
Yeah.
me, I'm still scared. There's a lot of things I'm scared of that, of course, a lot of things.
Oh,
Way
yeah.
the world is now, how it is. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
man, um,
Yeah.
there's
That's
there's so many things, so much advice,
mhm.
yeah.
The fear part is interesting, right? Because I talk about
Mhm.
that too, of like, fear is a thing that most people shy away from, right? And as men, it's specifically saying like, we're not afraid. And to me it's like, I can very much put myself in that camp of like, I'm not afraid of anything. And I said that, like, I'm not afraid of anything, right? And then my daughter's born, and then instant, like, I have so many fears of like, oh my God, is she healthy? Is she, am I gonna like accidentally like bump her head one day, or is she gonna eat
Yeah.
today, and like, is she, all these different fears start popping up. And
Mhm.
and it's that thing of like showing your kids of it's okay to feel these emotions, right? I
Yeah.
mentioned that on a different episode with
Mhm.
someone, that there's an awesome video of Canelo, he's with his, baddest, one of the baddest guys on the
Oh
planet, right?
yeah. Yeah,
And
for
he's in the
sure.
he's in the gym hitting pads, right? And his little son, I think at the time was 3-4 years old or something, and he's there hitting
Mhm.
pads and
Yeah.
whatever in the gym, and he falls down, he falls down and he starts crying, right? A little bit like tearing up, kind of sobbing, but I can tell like, he's kind of like looking around to see if it's like kind of like
Mhm.
if it's okay. And so
Yeah,
all the guys around, all the guys in the gym are like, one of them came up to him, he's like, "Oh, you're tough, you're a boxer, you don't cry, right?" And I think he's just trying to like kind of console him in the typical way
right.
that, most Mexican guys I think are brought up.
Mhm.
And then Canelo comes up and he's like, "Oh," he's like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "No, it hurts." And he's like, "It's okay to cry." And he tells him like, "It's okay to cry. Like, it's okay sometimes to cry. Like if if you have to get it out, and that's okay." And
Yeah,
there was so much power in that, and I think he meant it in a place of like, it's okay to feel your emotions. And obviously I don't think he wants him to, sit there and cry all the time, but
yeah,
he's basically telling him, like pick and choose, right?
yeah.
And you would never hear that before, right? And I think that
No,
comes it's awesome to see, because it's like moving in the right direction of,
right.
we're not these like stone figures that like don't
Yeah,
feel anything, and we're not made out of like titanium.
yeah.
And
We're not
sometimes
robots, you know.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And sometimes it's okay to feel things, right? And it's okay to embrace those emotions. It's not that we have to sit in them, but it's okay to
yeah,
channel them and express them.
yeah. I've seen that video you're talking about. It's a good video, and I think what he mentioned was like, if it hurts, it's okay to cry. Let it out if it's hurt.
Mhm,
If it hurts, and
mhm.
that's one thing I do mention to my kids. I say, hey, don't ever hold nothing in. You know,
Yeah.
if you gotta cry, cry. Let it out. It's okay to
Mhm,
cry. I said, Daddy cries. I still
mhm,
cry. I get emotional because
mhm,
it does get overwhelming. Work,
mhm,
being a father,
mhm.
and trying to find the mental capacity to be a dad after a long day. You come home
Yeah,
and your kids are dad, 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 and you're like,
yeah,
oh, you're fried, but
yeah,
you somehow still got to try to find that little burst of energy to wrestle with them, play with them, even though you don't want to. I'm
yeah,
guilty of that. There's times I'm
mhm,
like, just go away. I have two boys, so they're kind of,
yeah,
a little crazy.
yeah,
Yeah, so I get it, man. Yeah,
yeah,
it's okay to tell your kids to show their emotions, to cry. I mean, like you
yeah,
said, not sit there and cry about every little thing now, but
mhm,
if you're feeling some type of way about something, you got something you got to get off your chest, talk about it. If you got to talk about it, talk about it. If you got to cry, cry. And
mhm.
that's one thing I could tell dads is listen to your kids as well. Listen to
Yeah.
them. You know,
And look out for those cues, right? Because I think one of the things that isn't talked about enough is you look at like the suicide rates between men and
mhm,
women, and it's an astronomical difference, man. It's like
way
seven,
higher.
yeah, it's like, by like three or
Mhm,
four fold, right? Like over. And
yep.
it's a lot of it has to do with that, I'm sure, of there's no outlet for guys to talk, right? Like it's so frowned upon, like even within your like, sometimes in your own friend circle, where you're just kind of like,
Mhm,
I have one really good like best friend, and my brother too also, who I feel like I can talk to like very openly about like this kind of stuff. And I have some other friends that I'm
mhm,
starting to like develop that more and more, but
yeah.
it doesn't feel so like, it's not as organic for men, I think, for us to sit there and say like, man, I'm really going through it today, or like, man, I'm like
Yeah.
really like, this is like, I'm stressed. Like, have you ever felt this? Like,
Yeah,
it doesn't.
it's hard. Yeah, yeah, I'm sorry to cut you. It's hard just to
No.
say, "Hey, bro, I'm in my fitting state. Can you help me out?" It's something you
Yeah,
can't just
yeah,
do. I
yeah,
get it.
yeah, yeah. I
Um,
know you'd kind of get like that. What the fuck? Like, what's
yeah,
going on? Or you expect that, right? You'd expect that,
yeah,
but then that's not what you get whatsoever, right? Like some of
uh,
this, like this with the podcast that I'm doing. When I started it, I kind of thought, I'm probably gonna get a lot of like, what the fuck is he doing kind of thing, right? Like,
uh,
but the opposite happened, right? The reaction I got was, oh
yeah,
wow, that's cool. Like, it's cool that there's somewhere where dads can actually talk about everything from,
yeah.
what's it like to be a dad? How do you improve as a dad? And
Hmm.
I think there's a real kind of interest in that, because from what I saw, I wanted to join something, but there wasn't really anything
Hmm.
that was out there. It was a lot
Yeah.
of like, here's the best like product for your baby and that kind of thing, right? And
Mhm.
that's cool and it's helpful, but for me it's more the other side of like what's it take to be a dad? How do you get better as a dad? And what are some of the real things that dads go through? That to me was more important to figure out, and not only for myself, but like I wanted to see, like if we could create some kind of like snowball effect to
Right.
actually improve what it's like to be a dad in this country.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's a good thing you're doing, what you're doing, because it's showing that we're not alone.
Mhm.
You know, you're not alone. There's a lot of dads out there that are going through the same thing you're going through, or maybe even worse. Who knows? But it's cool that you're creating this platform where we could come on and talk about it, and give advice or take advice. And I think that's
Mhm.
awesome. And these days, mental health. I think June this month is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, something like that. And I think it's cool to talk about those things.
Mhm.
And they're it's something important that us as men and fathers, we don't, like you said, we don't have to build this wall or hold this wall up. Like, if we have to talk about it, let's talk about it.
Mhm.
And and not all dads, like, another thing I tell dads, like, you don't gotta try to be macho. You don't gotta be, oh, I'm a man. I don't have feelings. And no, man.
Yeah.
Like, I
There's
yeah,
I think, yeah, I think there's more power in admitting that you don't have it all figured out, right?
yeah, yeah.
That whole posturing of like I'm the stoic dad, and there's a time to be stoic, and there's a time to
Yep.
embrace your emotions. I feel like, and there's so much power in um I say this in my professional work, but like there's so much power in like just being humble enough to say I don't know this, right? I'm the first one to say like I don't know
Mhm.
what the fuck you're talking about. Can you like break it down for me? Like, can you explain it
Yeah,
to me? Because, and I'll say
yeah,
it to my wife too, of like, I don't know if I understand what you're saying. Can you like explain it to me like
yeah.
differently? Or like, can we draw it out? I'm a very visual person. So I'll start
Mhm.
writing on a whiteboard and things like that. And, you know, if I don't, if I don't understand something in like that pertains to being a dad or fatherhood or to taking care of my daughter, I don't care if I look like an idiot. It's like I'm gonna keep asking questions, and I'm gonna keep like trying to dive in, because what's the alternative? To pretend that I know that I have it all figured out, right? That's not gonna
Or
help anyone.
or you could always get on YouTube and just YouTube it, man.
Yeah, that exactly, that too. If I
You
can't
can
figure it
learn
out on
everything.
YouTube, yeah, if I
Yeah,
can't
just
figure it out on
YouTube
YouTube, then I got a real problem.
it. Yeah, yeah. Then you got problems.
Yeah. No, but yeah, just cycling back to that, man, it's just that I think we can't be afraid of looking dumb, or whatever it may be, right? It's just like find the courage, I guess, to be humble and say, I don't know this, or I need help, or I need
Oh,
someone's advice to kind of bounce ideas off of.
oh yeah. Oh, dude, don't get me wrong. There's many nights, like, I'm sure some dads, and it is true. When you do something wrong, even if you're yelling at your kid, kind of, I guess, on that subject, but you try to get ideas of how to be a better father. What did I do wrong? Because you do go to bed sometimes where I know I have, like, fuck, I shouldn't have yelled at him like that. You feel this
Yeah.
guilt. It really is true. It's really
Mhm.
true, man. Many nights I've gone to bed, I'm like, man, I shouldn't have fucking yelled at him. And it could be
Yeah.
for the stupidest thing too. It's just that you're tired and they're being
Yeah.
loud and you yell and you're like,
Mhm.
dude, and then you start thinking like, dude, you're only like, my youngest is 3, my
Yeah.
oldest is 7. So I'm like, dude, they're kids. What the
Yeah.
fuck? Yeah, what are you doing? Well, why?
Yeah.
And and many times I've gotten up, I've gone to the room and let some advice and give them, sit with them, talk to them and say, hey, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to yell at
Mhm.
you, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's many things, a lot of things you can learn. Like I said, I'm humble enough, like you're saying, to admit I'm still
Yeah.
learning. I
Yeah.
every day you
Yeah,
learn
absolutely.
something new, man.
Speaking of, so when it comes to balancing responsibilities with your fiance and your kids, how does
Mhm.
that work for you guys? What does she take the lead on? What do you kind of take the back seat on? And what do you take lead on?
I take the lead on in the mornings. I mean, me and her as well. Our relationship's not perfect either. We do argue. It's not a fucking romance movie.
Mhm.
Especially having kids, it can be frustrating. It could build friction. A lot of date nights go out the window. And then when you do want to do something, you're like, fuck, we're just too tired. So it's
Mhm.
trying to find that balance. Well, like I said, I can't remember. I can't remember the last time we had a date night together. But
Mhm.
a lot of things she takes lead on, or I take lead on. Of course, doctor's appointments. She's like
Mhm.
the main one for that, which I don't
Mhm.
mind taking them. But she does that. Like in the mornings, we have a routine. Every morning, I wake up super early. I get them dressed, get them both rolling. She gets them in the restroom, brushes her teeth, and we go about our day.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of things. With the right partner, you just try to have a routine and stick to it. Sometimes routine works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you got kids that start crying and don't want to do it. Uh, but balance is key. You got to try to find
Mhm.
balance. And me and her have been talking like, when are we gonna go out? When are we gonna go out? And it's just like, I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
so,
Yeah,
and
that's a,
then
that's
and
a
then oh, go ahead.
no. I was just gonna say, balance is key, right? I think that's such a good point, right? Trying to find it when you can, and I can totally relate to what you're saying. Even now, like my daughter's barely about to be 11 weeks old, but
Wow.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yesterday was the first time we were able to sit down and have like we've been trying to have like a at home movie night, and
Hmm.
it happened yesterday for the first time. We're like, wow, she slept that whole movie, and we got to watch card. I got to show my wife Guardians of the Galaxy. She's like loves them in like all the other Marvel movies, but she's like she
Yeah.
hasn't seen the movie, so we watched it and it was awesome, right? But
Oh
it's
man,
it's
yeah.
it's so hard to get that to line up.
Telling you, dude. Yeah, it is very hard, and sometimes you're like, oh, when are we gonna have naughty time? Or dude, I can't tell you how many times
Yeah.
you're like, all right, this is a night, and I shit
Yeah.
you not, man. It is true, shit you not. You close the door, and I tell her it's like they sense evil, like something evil is
Yeah.
about to happen because the
Yeah.
door closes, you hear the little footsteps, and then Daddy, I'm like, oh my god, like, dude, all I need is like 5 minutes. Come on, man.
Yeah.
But I say these things because it's true. It's
It is. It's real,
you got
man.
to
It's
try to find that time to, whether it's to be intimate or to
yeah.
go out on a date. You got to try to find that time. It is difficult, and it's sometimes you just got to take what you can get.
Yeah. It's
So
funny. It's funny because sometimes you hear that thing of like, once a couple has three kids, they're like, oh, now we're officially outnumbered. And I thought like that's such bullshit because like even with one kid, like with one daughter now, I feel like we're outnumbered. Like all of our time and attention goes to her. So it's kind of like
yeah,
that phrase is interesting because I'm like, I think even at two, I would start feeling that, man, because it's so time intensive. And if for me, if you're doing it right, it's their needs go above your own, right? And so you have to
yep,
take that back seat. And those, you hear so many people say like, I heard it somewhere recently where it's just like I'm not my life doesn't revolve around my kids. I'm gonna have my career. Or I'm gonna do this, and I'm like,
uh,
that's a terrible fucking mindset
yeah.
because
That's where they fuck up right there already.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like you're
Hmm.
trying to do all these other things, and I'm trying to do a lot too, but it's finding that balance and finding
Right.
ways to integrate it into my life rather than
Hmm.
trying to say, I'm gonna carve out this and this is like untouchable time and like my kids will never like touch this time and this is for me. It's like that's such bullshit. Like
Yeah, it is.
you're gonna do a shitty job of raising kids if you approach it that way, I think. And
And
I've all the
then,
great yeah, just all the
yeah,
great parents that I've come across, they don't approach it that way.
and then those type of parents are the ones crying in the end. Oh, why doesn't my kid like me? Or why don't we have this in
Yeah,
common? Or why can't? Oh, well, what do you think, dude?
yeah.
You revolve your life around work. I mean, which ain't
Mhm.
nothing wrong with that. You got a career, I understand that, but you got to find that balance. And like I said earlier, be a dad. It's the
Mhm.
first thing your kids want is a father. That's present,
Yeah.
mindful of them, and cheer them on every step of the way. Yeah, that is bullshit though. When they say stuff like that, it's kind of like, really, man? Like, come on.
It's disappointing, right? Because I've talked to so many dads. Part of what kind of got me thinking about this idea too was for my actual job, I travel a lot, and I used to
Mhm.
at least. And I talked to a lot of different people, and it was kind of in a very much kind of like in a hybrid, like I've been marketing, but like in a hybrid kind of sales capacity when I'm at these shows talking to potential prospects and clients. And,
Mhm.
I never approach it from like, here's what we do and blah, blah, blah. It's always kind of like trying to figure out who the person is and talking to them and,
Yeah.
what are they interested in? And usually, man, every single time it's with a guy, it's to them talking about their kids. It's always
Yeah.
like, you see them light up and they're like, oh, my kid's in, gymnastics right now. And,
Yeah.
when I get back home, I'm going to go to this gymnastics meet. And,
Yeah.
my kid's in wrestling, my kid's in this and that. And it's so cool, man, to see people's like light up that way. And these are people that are highly successful, like executive
Mhm.
level, at big companies, things like that. And, they find the time, man. They find that
Yeah.
priority, that way of like, I have a career, but like my kids are going to come first. Like if I have to
Oh,
reschedule that
exactly.
meeting, it'll get rescheduled. Like we'll figure it out. But,
Oh,
you know,
yeah, because you'll never get that time back, man. That old cliche, and it's true. You'll
mhm,
never get that time back. And
mhm,
me, I drive trucks all day, so I do travel,
mhm,
throughout the state. But the
mhm.
good thing is I'm home every day, but I do travel far.
Yeah.
And same thing, if my oldest has like a wards assembly or any little thing to do with school, I'm like, hey, I
Yeah.
can't go this far today. I got to be out this time because
Yeah.
just when they see you there present, their
Mhm,
face lights up. Like, hey, you're like, hey, I'm here. And they're like, oh shit, my dad's here or
mhm.
something.
Yeah.
And that's to me, that's very important. To
Mhm,
that's some advice you give other dads. Like that shit is important.
mhm,
They want to see you there. They want
mhm.
you to be present. And that shit goes a long way.
Yeah, like it means the world to them, right? These little things that you
Hmm.
might find insignificant, right? Like, oh, I'm in the spelling bee, or I'm in this, right? Like, I'm in the
Yeah.
school play, that kind of thing. It just like it means so much. I can't tell you how many times, like growing up, I didn't have any of that, and I always kind of longed for it. My mom occasionally would show up, right? But I was like pursuing
Mm-hmm.
these different things of like whether it was like a spelling bee or whatever it is, some kind of club or whatever, that having someone there to cheer you on and say like, oh, that's awesome, right? Like, and to kind of nurture that, right, whatever those interests are. I think that goes such a
Right.
long way. And you mentioned, my brother's also a truck driver, and he has a son, and he recently he took my nephew. He's 12 now, about to go on 13, and he's like,
Hmm.
hey, you're coming with me on some of these trips, man, so you can see how hard daddy works, because it's not all what you think it is, right? And
It's
he's
stressful. It can
yeah,
be.
yeah, yeah. And he's like, look, you're gonna see dad works hard, and you're gonna see what it's like to work hard. And he's like, I'll cut you some little money if you help me. I'll cut you a little check,
Yeah.
but you're gonna help me and do what I tell you to do. And
Yeah.
at the end of it, you'll get a little paycheck. But I was telling my
Yeah.
brother, I was like, you should actually take the taxes out and show him what you actually get.
You're gonna learn today, boy.
Yeah,
But
I don't.
it's an important life lesson. Like, hey, this is what be prepared because this is what's gonna happen.
Yeah, absolutely right. Like here's
Yeah.
here's what taxes are, and here's why you should not want to
Yeah.
pay tax as much tax as
Yeah.
possible. Right. Yeah.
Exactly, man.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. So tell me, like, when you think through some of the best advice, dad advice you've gotten, who's it been from? Is it been from your own dad? Has it been from like just dad figures? Has it been, I say that you can learn from like someone on TV, or even like a great dad that you met once, right? Like, who is it that you
Mhm.
learned from?
Well, me and my father never had the best relationship,
Mm,
so I could actually rule that out. Sadly, because the state he's in right now, it's kind of sad.
mhm,
So I can't sit here and say I pull all my inspiration from him because
mhm,
I he's everything I strive not to be.
mhm,
So sadly, a lot of my outside influence or influence I've gotten, like, trying to be a better man or father is from outside influences.
Mhm.
You know, whether it be coworkers or
Mhm.
you know, and not having a big family, but like you know, cousins here and there,
Mhm.
and sadly, man, like you know, YouTube, watching you know those dad inspiration videos, seeing other
Mhm.
dads, you know, struggle like you know, like I have in the past,
Yeah.
and you know, grabbing inspiration from that, and sadly, yeah, you know, off of YouTube
Mhm.
videos, TikTok videos, you know,
Mhm.
I pull
Yeah.
inspiration from that to try to help me. And like I said, me and my dad, it,
Yeah.
we would need a whole new segment about that.
Yeah.
But keep a long story short, it
Mhm.
was a little rough growing up with him. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna sit here and say I was in an abusive household,
Mhm.
but there was some little abuse there, like mental
Yeah.
abuse, a
Yeah.
little bit of physical, because he
Yeah.
would drink a lot,
Yeah.
and I remember, you know,
Yeah.
he would throw his cans outside, and he'd come in and smack me in the head and pull me by my ear. Hey, why aren't those cans picked up?
Yeah.
Dude, I didn't throw them there.
Right.
So to speed things up, you know, as I got a little bit older in my teen years, finally one day I stood up to him and we actually would get into it. My mom would have to come
Mhm.
in between us and
Mhm.
like, hey, because after a while, it's like, you're sick of your shit, man, hitting me
Yeah.
and yelling
Mhm.
at me for
Yeah.
everything. And him and my mom didn't have the best relationship either. So growing up, seeing that kind of
Mhm.
sucked. So, but lastly, I will say inspiration that I got to being a good father, sadly to say, is from my mom.
Yeah.
You know, because when her and my dad separated, I was like in my early teens. So
Mhm.
when they separated, it was a single house, single mom. And let me tell you, man, she ruled us with a fucking iron fist.
Mhm.
She did keep us in line, me and my sister. I don't have no brothers. I wish I did, but I
Yeah.
do have a younger, awesome sister.
Mhm.
And she ruled us with an iron fist. And sad to say, she was like my dad. I mean, granted, there are some things she
Mhm.
couldn't teach me, you know, how to, it was hard for her to teach me how to be a man.
Yeah.
I know, but she did teach me some things and how to be
Mhm.
humble in life and how to treat people with respect and how to love people and accept people. Those are things she
Yeah.
did teach me, which I was yearning from my father to teach me.
Yeah.
But it was my mom that stepped up and said, "Hey, this is how you got to do it." And that's how I grew up to be who I am today. You know, a lot of it I give thanks to my mother for
Mhm.
you know raising me the
Yeah.
way she did. So
Yeah, our mom's awesome,
yeah.
man. I'm in a very similar situation as you. Almost feels eerily identical, man. My dad was the same
Yeah.
way, right? Just very. I think it's more and more common in Mexican culture. I'll say, just knowing how
Hmm.
I grew up and around. I grew up in basically in the south side of Chicago, and just being
Oh
around
well.
nothing but Mexican families for a long time. And it's the same situation, right? Where my dad, the same thing, abused alcohol and got abusive, physically abusive, mentally abusive with my mom, a
Hmm.
little bit with us for sure. And, it was that thing, same kind of story. Once I got strong enough, standing up for my mom, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's so tough, man, because you start thinking, like, is that what it's like? Is that what you're kind of like resigned to in life? And for me as a kid, I told myself like I'm never gonna be that way, right? For a long time, I didn't want to have kids for that same reason of like I don't
Hmm.
want to fall into the same cycle, but it takes a lot of time to like figure out that's just how one person handles it. It's not what
Yeah.
you have to do, right? It's up to you to break that cycle and to break that wheel. And it's something that, I've gone so far as like I don't drink anymore. And for that same
Hmm.
reason of like it's this like I'm terrified that one day I can fall into this cycle, the same cycle. And I want to avoid that. And
Hmm.
it's worked out well for me, but for anyone out there that's dealing with the same thing, it's like you can break that. It's you don't have to be someone else. You don't have to raise kids the way you were raised, right? And
Right.
that's
Exactly.
never okay.
Hmm. Yeah. And today is actually 70 days with no alcohol for me as well. So,
Awesome. Awesome.
and it's not that I ever had a problem. I never
Yeah.
have, but there was a point, you know, maybe sometime last year or the year before where I was drinking like every weekend. And I
Hmm.
noticed I would just seclude myself into my man cave, start
Yeah.
drinking, putting on music, and
Mhm.
you know, at first I'm like, hey, I'm just having a good time, decompressing. But then I
Yeah.
found myself, I did put on a lot of weight, just drinking,
Mhm.
eating like crap, and
Yeah.
finally one day I was kind of like, dude, what are you doing, man? You know, because at
Yeah.
that little stretch right there, my kids are running around like, Dad, you know, let's do this, and I'm like, no,
Mhm.
just go away, close the door. You know, I'm like, dude, you're starting to go down that path, you know, and it's like, wait a minute, no, can't do that. So
Yeah.
today's 70 days, and I, you know,
It's
started
awesome.
walking every morning, and within a year and a half or so, I think I've dropped like over 70 something pounds, and I feel better.
Awesome, man.
And
Congrats.
so, and it's, yeah, it's not only for my mental health, you know, physically, yes, but also for up here.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure.
to be a father, you know, you gotta try to keep this going and not try to make, you know, not get it to where it's all mush and just
Yeah.
shitty.
We got to be sharp, right? Like I
Yeah.
felt the same way, right? Where, I thought through when me and my wife decided to have kids, we are just like, I was
Mm,
like, I have to get that in order too, right? Like I need to be aware, I need to be present. And
mm.
being hungover, I don't know how they do it, man. Like I see people with
Oh,
kids and that they still drink and whatever, and I'm not
mm,
judging anyone. I think everyone should make their own
yeah,
decision, right? But I'm just like, man, how can you be hungover and take care of kids, man? It's so
yeah,
tough. And
it's rough.
maybe certain stages get easier, but I'm like, man, I don't get it. Like
I-
there's no way I can do it. I remember the hangovers that I used to get, and just like I
yeah,
didn't want anyone talking to me, right? Like,
yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah. That's
crazy.
how I wake up, dude. I wake up, my head will be pounding. You know, head spinning, head pounding. Your kids come in, like you're like, holy shit. So that
Yeah.
was one of the decisions I made. Like, I can't do that. You know, I just the hangovers. You know, all that shit is just stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, for sure. So what do you think, what's some advice that you think a lot of dads need to hear? What's like a secret gem that you may have, right? Like what's one big piece of advice that dads can take away that you wish dads would know?
uh, Through all the chaos of your everyday life, work, being a dad,
Mhm.
my secret gem for me personally, and this is just me, everyone else can do their own thing, but you got to try to find some time for yourself, even if it's for 30 minutes, an hour.
Yeah.
And what I've done personally over the past year, even when I stopped drinking for this time, every morning before work, I get up and it's not every day. I'm not a athletic person. I don't eat special diets. I still eat whatever I want, just not as much. But I do wake up before work, and that's the time I find for myself where I just go walk. That's it.
Yeah.
I go to the park. It's dark. It's a little eerie, a little creepy, but I mean, that's like my peaceful time right there. And I think that's important because once I'm done, you come back, you take a shower, and you're like, shit, I feel energized, I feel good, ready to go. And Whether it be walking, that's one of my outlets. One of my other outlet is before my kids, I used to game
Mm.
a lot, and especially on the weekends now, like I maybe play my PlayStation like once every other weekend.
Mhm.
But to me, that's so important because I usually on Sundays I'll wake up before everybody, whether it
Mhm.
be 5, 6 in the morning, and I'll sit there for like an hour and a half and I'll just play my game.
Yeah.
That's I think that's so important to try to get that little bit of time for yourself. Like I said, whether it be 30 minutes, an hour, and just that way you can mentally prepare yourself for the day and you're that's
Yeah.
important, man. At the end of the day, yes, you care for everybody else. Got to make sure everybody else is okay, your kids are okay, but you got to make sure you're okay as well. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's where it starts. Make sure you're okay, and that way you can go about your day in a good mood and just let it happen.
Yeah, yeah, you'll be refreshed, right? And you'll be willing to take on
Hmm.
the day. I think you're right. It's man,
Yeah,
a walk can go such a long way. I'm a big
it
advocate
does.
of walking too, right? Like
Yeah.
everyone has this kind of misconception that you have to go on a run and you got to go jog and you got to do like a 5K and you got like just go for a walk for 15 minutes,
Yeah.
20 minutes, whatever you want. And it goes such a long way, man, mentally, physically. You do it every day
Mhm.
or you don't, right? A couple times a week. It's so
Yep.
beneficial. Like I again, I love that advice, man. Taking that time to do what you want to do, like even
Hmm.
carve out like 30 minutes or something, like
Yeah.
something easy, an hour, whatever it is. Like I train Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and
Oh,
I
nice.
I used to train like 3 to 5 times a week, and now it's like I'm lucky if I can get one in a week, right? And I'm
Yeah.
like, but even if I only get one, that's one session a week. That's my time, right? And I
Yeah.
get to decompress and do whatever, right? And train and just feel better. But like I love walks too, right? Like I'll go on a walk.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll go walk the dogs, and that's
Hmm.
fun to me too, because just time to like not think and just kind of get outside, get some sunshine, and it
Yeah.
it just it changes you, man. Like for those five,
Yeah.
10 minutes meditating in my office sometimes for 5 minutes and just
Hmm.
breathing and not thinking about anything, man, that goes such a long way. And it just kind of like
Yeah.
it recharges you when you really need it.
It sure does. And me personally, I choose early in the morning because I feel that's
Mhm.
when it's the most quiet.
Yes. Yeah, for
You know,
sure.
the world is still asleep, and there's the bullshit hasn't started yet. So to me,
Yeah.
that's why I choose early in the morning because I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
let's get it out before the bullshit starts.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, man, that's important. And another gem for me, my last thing I like to do is I do read to my kids every night. To
Yeah.
to me, it is like an outlet for me. So me, I collect a lot of comic books. I got a whole
Nice.
stack of comic books, Batman, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So to me, I feel that's refreshing.
Mhm.
You feel accomplished, because your kids are like, Dad, you get Batman book. Like, okay, let's go
Yeah.
read one. And a
Nice.
lot of them are graphic novels, so I got to change the
Mhm.
words. And
Yeah.
so, so to me, that's another thing. And that's an outlet for me personally. Reading to your kids, because at the end
Yeah.
of the day, you feel you're bonding with them.
Mhm.
You're getting something from them, but they're also getting something from you, which is your time, and showing that, hey, my dad gives a shit about me.
Yeah.
He's here. So
Yeah,
those,
that's
those are
beautiful.
just, yeah, those are just some things, man. They can do, or like you said, whatever it is, just try to find that little bit of time for yourself. That's most
Mhm.
important.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man.
So,
Any parting words that you have for the audience? Anything that you think was left unsaid?
um, man, I think I've said all I can say, but I'll just reiterate, what I said. Just take care of yourselves.
Mhm.
Us men, we do go through a lot. But there's a lot of pressure on us. Even though we try to put on this face where everything is okay, even if it's not okay, you just take care of yourselves, you know, and yeah, just take care of yourselves and be present for your kids, man. That's
Yeah. Yeah, that's
so.
beautiful, man. That's
Your
beautiful.
kids, yeah, your kids didn't ask to be here. They didn't ask for
Mhm.
this, so
Mhm.
don't be an asshole and try to raise your kids right
I love it. I love it. Did you hear that, guys? Don't be an asshole. Raise your kids. I love it.
as best
Awesome.
as you can.
Exactly. Oh, awesome, man. Love it. Appreciate the time, man. It was a great conversation. And, if anyone wants to follow you on TikTok or anywhere else, any of your handles you want to put out there?
Uh, yeah, I like got his TikTok. At JRod 1988. That's my TikTok handle. And if you want to follow. If you don't, then hey, it's cool. But follow the deck right, so it's a lot of good shit on there.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that.